I knew the night was going to tilt the second Troy showed up with. That bottle of Kistler. He always brings to places where he isn't paying the corkage. Vanessa didn't even look at me when she took his coat. She was already laughing at something her cousin Greg had said about the State House. Greg was doing his whole "I'm just a humble public servant" bit, which meant he'd cleared the primary and was now allowed to be insufferable in open vowels. "Ethan," she said, finally turning my way. Not my name. Really, just a vowel shift in the middle of a smile. "Go get the wine from the locker. Would you?" Troy brought something nice. "No point letting it breathe in your messenger bag. It's right here," I said, nodding at the table. Troy had already set it down like a trophy. Greg lifted his glass. "So, man, Nessa's you're deep in exams? General's coming up, right?" Vanessa smoothed her dress. The Navy one her father's assistant ordered because it reads well in Boston Magazine. She laughed before I could answer. "Oh, Ethan's still processing his result," she said, loud enough for the corner booth to catch it. "Let's just say if failing with distinction was a major, he'd have tenure by now." The table did what Vanessa's table always does. They laughed like it was a group subscription. Troy leaned forward, all sympathetic eyebrows. "Listen, buddy, it's not a knock. McKinsey was a different muscle. Academia's a grind. If you want, I can put a word in at Bunker Hill. They've got an adjunct spot, night classes, mostly workforce development. Pays like shit, but it looks fine on LinkedIn. Bunker Hill Community College." Vanessa repeated, tasting it. "That's cute. You could tell people you teach near Harvard and let them assume." "I don't need to assume anything," I said. She waved a hand. "He's touchy tonight. He spent 4 hours in that study muttering at a PDF. It's adorable, like a very tired golden retriever who thinks he's a wolf. Someone else, Lauren, from the wedding, married to a private equity guy, chimed in, 'Didn't you quit your job to do this?' Ethan, that was, what, 2 years ago? 26 months. Vanessa supplied helpfully. But who's counting? We all support his journey." My phone buzzed against the mahogany. Face down. I didn't flip it, but the screen lit up anyway. Preview pushed through Do Not Disturb because Margaret never uses a subject line that doesn't scream. Whitmore. M. Appointment letter attached. Title reflects the vote. Congratulations. Professor. I didn't smile. I found that if you smile too early, they think you're agreeing with them. "You know what?" I said, pushing back from the banquette. "I'm going to head out." Vanessa blinked. I almost never left before dessert. Leaving men acknowledging the joke had landed. "We're doing port," she said, like I was a kid asking to be excused from Thanksgiving. "I've got a draft to finish." I told the table. "Polite, flat, good seeing you, Greg." "Troy." Troy raised his glass. "Keep grinding." "Caldwell." Vanessa stood with me, just far enough from the others to drop her voice into that bright, serrated register she saves for foyer fights. "Don't forget to take out the recycling before you go hide in your little study. Professor Failure," she said, smiling so wide her cheekbones hurt. Then she patted my chest, turned, and slid back into booth like nothing happened. The walk home wasn't a walk. Cambridge in October is just cold enough to make you honest. When I got back to the townhouse on Beacon Hill, our townhouse, legally speaking, she was already in the bedroom texting. The blue light off her phone made the room look colder than it was. I went to the kitchen, poured a glass of tap water, and stood there until she came down. "You embarrass me," she said, leaning against the island. "You made a joke about my exam results in front of my ex-colleague. Ex-boss, maybe, and it was funny. You're so tense lately. Even Dad noticed." Right. Her father, Richard Pierce. Old money, older temper. Newer hobby of pretending he understands how doctoral candidacy works. "Dad called this afternoon." She went on, scrolling as she talked. "He's pulling the guarantee on the seed fund. He says if you're not serious about real work, he's not underwriting a hobby. I didn't ask him to underwrite anything." She laughed, short and dry. "You quit a 6-figure track record to be an ABD. You don't get to be proud right now. Look, there's a slot at the Pierce Foundation. Advisory board. Mostly rubber stamps. $60K. No travel. You just sit in on quarterly calls and let us put your name on the education initiative. It gets Dad off my back. I set the glass down. You already told him I'd take it? I told him you'd consider it, which is code for yes. Because we don't have a plan B. You keep saying we. I said, funny, every version of your plan starts with me shrinking. Her face shifted. Not anger yet, calculation. Don't do the wounded thing. Ethan, it doesn't suit you. You proposed to me in Chatham in the Rain, acting like some scrappy Boston kid who didn't care about status. Now you care. You care so much you're failing tests to prove a point. I didn't fail. I said. She rolled her eyes so hard it was almost a shrug. Whatever the portal says. Babe, we both know what it means. Upstairs. My laptop was open to the draft syllabus. Gov. 2290. Institutional Economics. I've been tweaking the week 1 reading list since Thursday. A Slack ping lit up from Lila Okonkwo. Dean's office just confirmed the listing went live internally. Did you see it? Me? Not yet. Lila, they used your full title. Jesus. Ethan, you realize half the senior faculty are having strokes right now, right? I typed back, paused, deleted it, and rewrote it exactly how I wanted it logged. Me, make sure the classroom allocation is litar for. And Lila, when you send the cohort note, use the right prefix. Lila, roger that. Welcome aboard. Professor. I heard Vanessa outside the study door. She wasn't knocking, just standing there, listening. You talking to that grad student again? She called through the wood. Work stuff. I said, God, you sound so earnest. It's embarrassing. Her footsteps faded back toward the bedroom. A minute later, I heard the lock click. My phone buzzed again. Not Margaret. HR. Subject. Faculty appointment. Executive approval. Caldwell. I scrolled to the bottom. Read the effective date. Retroactive to first of the month. And sign the acknowledgement with my thumbprint. Vanessa texted me from the other side of the house. In the same thread we use for grocery runs. Vanessa, Troy says if you apologize to Greg tomorrow, he won't mention the community college thing to the Globe intern hanging around the club. Just say you were stressed about grades. People love a humble comeback arc. I didn't answer. I closed the laptop, grabbed the recycling on my way past kitchen, like she asked, and dropped it in the bin without making a sound. Outside, someone a few doors down was playing Coltrane low through an open window. Inside, Vanessa was on speakerphone with Lauren, laughing about the little study and how I'd probably cry if I ever actually passed something. I sat on the stairs for a minute, not because it stung, because I was trying to remember the last time she'd asked me a question she actually wanted a real answer to. There wasn't one, so I stopped looking for it. Tomorrow morning, the internal directory would update. She'd find out the way she finds out everything she's wrong about. Late, loudly, and in front of people who already knew. For tonight, I let her think she won the dinner. She didn't come down for breakfast. She never does when she's decided she's the aggrieved party. But she makes sure I hear her moving around upstairs. So I know the silence is deliberate. By 10, Troy's name popped up on my lock screen. Not a call. He's a text-first guy, so he can keep receipts. Troy, Ness forwarded me the Pierce Foundation draft MOU. Happy to loop in the GC this week. If you're ready to sign the personal services addendum, keep it clean. Ethan, no one needs to know you stepped back from the ivory tower. I didn't answer. I was on a Zoom with the department scheduler, confirming office hours. Margaret sat in for the last 5 minutes just to remind me, loudly, for whoever was still listening on the Art Sciences admin line, that my appointment had cleared the corporation vote unanimously. After the call ended, I printed the hard copy of the offer letter. Old habit. I liked the weight of it. Vanessa walked into the living room while I was stapling the syllabus to the course reader. Who prints things at 11 a.m.? She said, pouring cold brew from the carafe I'd made earlier. Are you applying for a library card? Just signing some paperwork. I said, Troy said you ghosted him. Troy's not my boss. She laughed into her mug. Okay, well, Troy is technically reviewing our prenup addendum today. So, semantics. That got my attention. I set the staple remover down. Our prenup doesn't have an addendum. We signed it in 19. Yeah, well, Dad's lawyer wants it clarified now that taking a beat. She scrolled her phone, not even looking at me. Basically, if you take the foundation stipend, it gets filed as marital income. If you don't, and you stay in this ABD limbo another year, the trust distributions to the joint account pause. Simple. You talk to your dad about pausing our household money. I framed it as protecting the family brand, which, fun fact, he appreciated. Turns out he likes it when I advocate for myself instead of enabling a charity case. I lean back. You call me a charity case of Richard? She finally looked up. I called you a guy figuring his shit out on my dime. There's a difference. The mortgage is in both our names. Vanessa, the down payment came out of my McKinsey exit. She waved that off like it was a rounding error. And then we merged accounts and Daddy refinanced a rate through his private bank. Don't do math with me. Ethan, you hate it when you lose. The doorbell rang. Courier, Harvard Law School stationery on the envelope. Hand-delivered from Margaret's chief of staff to my home address because I'd requested hard copy tax docs for faculty. Vanessa glanced at it on the console. More applications? She asked, smirking. You really are leaning into the whole struggling student aesthetic. Something like that. She stepped closer, lowering her voice the way she does when she thinks she's being generous. Listen, the club thing last night, it was a joke. You're overthinking it. Troy's taking us to the alumni gala next week. If you want, I won't bring up the exam stuff. You can just say you're consulting again. People respect consulting. I'm not consulting. Then what are you doing in there all day? She gestured at the study. You talked to that girl. What's her name? Layla? Lila. Right. You talk to Lila more than you talk to me. It's weird. She's a PhD candidate, and you're failing comps. And you're both acting like you're in some secret little seminar. I didn't correct her. Not yet. She kept going. Troy thinks you're depressed. I told him no. Just stubborn. But if you don't sign the foundation thing, he's going to have to list me as sole managing member of the Beacon Hill Trust Properties. Just paperwork. Ethan, it keeps the tax break. I stood up, walked over to the console, picked up the courier envelope, and tossed it on the island between us. Open it, I said. She squinted. What is this? Read the cover memo. She slid the folder open, expecting a rejection letter or a bill. I watched her eyes track left to right, slowing down when she hit the letterhead. Harvard University Faculty of Arts and Sciences. Appointment of tenure-track professor. Exceptional vote of the governing board, waiving the traditional assistant professor interval. Her mouth did this small, involuntary twitch. This says professor. It does. Government department. Tenure eligible. She flipped the page. Effective this month. Tenure granted. I said, not eligible. Granted. Margaret pushed it through on the research citation record. Skipped the assistant rank entirely. Vanessa laughed once. Sharp and automatic. This is a draft. Or a mistake. Or you're listed as a TA and you're too proud to admit. Check the salary schedule on page 3. I said, she did. The number froze her for a second. It wasn't McKinsey money. But it didn't need to be. It was Harvard endowed chair money. And it had a 9-month summer stipend attached because of the Senate subcommittee invite Margaret hadn't even told me about yet. You didn't fail, she said, very quietly. No, you didn't tell me. You didn't ask. I said, you told Greg, Troy, Lauren, and half the dining room that I was a failure before I could get a word out. Then you tried to renegotiate our marriage like I was unemployed. She recovered fast. She always does. The smile came back. The performative one. Okay, this is actually perfect. Think about the optics. Power couple. You're at Harvard. I'm at the foundation. Troy handles the legal wrappers. We pivot the narrative. I'll tell Lauren I was joking about the exam. Obviously. Irony. People love irony. You're not pivoting anything. Ethan, don't be petty. This is good for us. We can kill the prenup addendum. Obviously, that was just leverage. I'll tell Dad to reinstate the distribution. Better, you can announce the appointment at the gala next week. I'll introduce you. You're not introducing me anywhere. I said. She blinked. Excuse me? The foundation job? Turn it down for me if Troy hasn't filed it yet. Tell your dad I don't need his seed fund, his tax break, or his version of a comeback arc. Vanessa set the envelope down like it had burned her fingers. Are you seriously doing this? After everything I've done to manage your reputation in this city, you manage me into a punchline. Because you let me. She snapped. You never correct me in public. Ethan, you just sit there and sulk and make me look like the bitch. If you wanted credit, you should have sent a press release. I don't want credit. I said, I want quiet. Her phone buzzed. Troy, sent the draft MOU to Ness. Have Caldwell signed by end of day or we pull the introduction at the gala. She read it, then looked at me like she was offering a lifeline. Sign the foundation thing today. I'll bury the MOU tonight, and we go to the gala as a reset. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be. I picked up the envelope, slid it back into the courier fold, and tucked it under my arm. I already have a commitment next week. I said, to who? My students. First lecture's Monday. She stared at me for a long 3 seconds, then gave this brittle little laugh. You think skipping a gala to teach 20-year-olds is a power move? Jesus, you really are going to waste this. Upstairs, her bedroom door slammed. A minute later, the sonos in the primary suite kicked on, some Taylor Swift deep cut. She only plays when she wants me to know she's crying without actually knocking. My phone lit up. Lila, just got the room assignment confirmed. Litar 4. Capacity is oversubscribed already. Did something leak? Me, not a leak. Just a wife who talks too much in the wrong rooms. Lila, should I prep a media note? Me. No. Let them find out the way they found out about everything else. Loud and late. I opened my laptop and pulled up the university housing portal. Faculty with tenure get first right refusals on university-owned residences if they're separating from a shared property. I clicked the box, entered my Harvard, Idaho, and hit submit before the music upstairs changed to something meaner. Vanessa texted me from inside the locked bedroom. Vanessa, Troy says if you humiliate me at that gala, I will make sure Boston knows exactly how unstable you've been the last 6 months. I typed back once. Me, tell Troy to check his donor conflict filings. I'll see you Monday. Margaret doesn't do Zoom for personnel votes. She likes the room cold and the chairs uncomfortable so nobody drifts. I walked into the conference suite at Litor 5 minutes late on purpose. If you show up early to your own appointment announcement, it looks like you're auditioning. Troy's firm logo was already on the donor packet, sitting in front of every seat. Donovan Pierce, LLP. Vanessa's maiden name right there next to the gift terms. Margaret tapped her pen once. We'll begin. Congratulations to Ethan on clearing the corporation vote. Effective today. Government 2290 carries the Caldwell Chair designation. Ethan, welcome to the floor. A few of the senior guys clapped like they were settling a bet. Paul Rinaldi, the political economy lead, cleared his throat. Before we toast, Paul said, Troy Donovan mentioned the firm's new contribution to the Institute. There's a clause in the gift agreement tying faculty commentary on municipal bond disclosures to their PR approval. Standard donor courtesy. Supposedly, Ethan, since you're teaching institutional economics, any thoughts? I didn't open my notebook. I didn't need to. The clause violates Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 180, Section 8A. I said, nonprofit educational gifts tied to prior restraint PR sign-offs are unenforceable, and attaching it to a state-level disclosure framework makes the whole donation look like a lobbying pass-through. If Donovan Pierce wants a tax receipt, they need to strike subparagraph 4. The room went still. Paul flipped the pages like he hadn't actually read them. Margaret smiled into her coffee. Struck. Then, glad we caught that. Caught it? Paul muttered. Christ. I gathered my things before the small talk started. Margaret caught me at the door. Your wife's family firm, she said, keeping her voice low. You're aware that burning the donor makes enemies. I didn't burn the donor. I said, I saved the university from a compliance letter from the Attorney General's office. If Troy wants to be cross about it, he can send me a cease and desist. I grade on the curve, not the threat. She laughed once. Dry. Monday's lecture is already oversubscribed. Try not to terrify them on day one. Vanessa showed up on campus at 2. I know, because Lila texted me from the basement stacks. Lila, FYI, your wife is in the coop with 2 girls in Lululemon buying mugs that say world's okayest professor. Me, ignore it. Lila, hard to ignore when she's loud enough to echo off the Harvard Yard bricks. I stayed in my office, finishing the reading annotations. 10 minutes later, Lila forwarded a voice memo. I didn't listen. She transcribed it for me like the menace she is. Vanessa, to her friends, probably some legacy brat from New York. God knows this place is a country club now. Ethan would have killed for a fraction of the networking these kids buy. Lila, walking past, he's from Brighton. Actually, and he doesn't do legacies. He does syllabi. Vanessa apparently didn't recognize Lila's voice from our Zooms. According to the follow-up text, she laughed and told her friend, even the TAs here have attitude problems. Lila corrected her again. I'm not a TA. Neither is he. Check your spam. Mrs. Caldwell, or the directory. By 3, Vanessa was calling me. First call, I declined. Second call, I answered on speaker while I replied to the registrar. You have a student calling me a liar in the campus store? She said. No, hello. Lila doesn't lie. I said, she told me to check the directory. Ethan, what the hell is going on? Troy says HR told his assistant there's a hold on the donor filing because of a compliance note you filed. Not a note, a correction to an illegal clause. She exhaled hard through her nose. Do you understand what you just did? My name is on that firm letterhead right now. Dad's going to get a call from the board chair. You're going to undo it. Can't. The clause is gone. The donation's still there, just without the gag order. Tell Richard to thank me later. Silence. Then the pitch shift, the one she uses when she realizes she's not being placated. I am at the co-op. Ethan, people are looking at me like I'm stupid. They're not looking at you like you're stupid. Ness, they're realizing you don't know how to say my name without a punchline. I will not be humiliated in my own city. You're not being humiliated. I said, closing my laptop. You're just late to a fact check. She hung up. Troy called 20 minutes later. I let it ring twice before picking up. Cut the shit. Caldwell, he said. Ness is crying in the Coop gift shop. You embarrass her in front of the development office contacts. Pull the compliance flag, or I start the fungid. The what? Separation paperwork. Pre-drafted. If you think tenure gives you leverage in a divorce, you don't know how Cambridge trusts work. I know how equitable distribution works in Massachusetts. I said, and I know your donor clause was a felony waiting to happen. Sit down. Troy. He switched gears. Fake calm. Look, man, just meet us at the alumni gala Thursday. You walk the floor with her. You play the happy husband. I'll smooth the Pierce side. You get your little classroom. She gets her photo op. Everyone wins. I'm not walking anywhere with her. Then you're walking into a very expensive discovery process. Discovery works both ways. I said, check the development office portal tonight. My electronic signature on the conflict audit authorization hits your firm's GC inbox at 8 a.m. Monday. Sleep tight. He hung up on me this time. Lila knocked on my office door. Physically knocked, which she never does. Your wife just posted a story, she said, holding up her phone without showing me. Caption says, proud of my husband's many learning curves. Private account, but half the GSES group chat already screenshotted it. I stood, grabbed my bag, and locked the office behind me. You good for Monday? I asked Lila. Enrollment just jumped again. Half of them are here for the syllabus. Half are here for the drama. Give them the reading. Let the drama sort itself out. Walking back toward the T, my phone buzzed with a calendar invite from Vanessa. Event, marriage check-in non-negotiable. Location, the club. Tonight. I deleted the invite, blocked Troy's number. and texted the only person whose title actually mattered. Me to Margaret. Audit on Donovan Pierce stands. See you at the gala. She replied in 3 words. Margaret, bring a +1. I almost laughed. At Harvard, even your dean knows when marriage is dead before the spouse does. Vanessa texted me a dress code at noon. Dark tie. Don't embarrass us by wearing that Zara rental again. I wore the Tom Ford the first bought 2 years ago that she convinced herself I thrifted off a sample rack in Somerville. She didn't ride over with me. Troy texted a screenshot of the valet ticket to her Snapchat and tagged the hotel like it was his event. By the time I walked into the ballroom, she was already on the riser near the press rope, leaning into a globe freelancer Vanessa thinks is a society writer, but is actually a higher ed beat reporter killing time before the bar opened. I heard her before I saw her. Career pivot, she was saying, swirling the glass. He's been in this transitional phase. Bless him. Exams didn't land the way he hoped. So we're keeping it low-key while he figures out community outreach. The reporter nodded. Typing fast. And you're still backing him to the Pierce Foundation? Vanessa smiled, hand resting lightly on Troy's arm. Of course. You support the people you love, even when they stumble. That's what tonight's about, right? Troy caught sight of me drifting near the back. He tilted his chin. Smug. Ethan, didn't think you'd show without an RSVP. Margaret added me to the program. I said. Vanessa turned. Her smile faltered for half a beat, then widened. There he is. Everyone. My husband. Currently rebranding as a very serious academic. A few people chuckled. The reporter looked up, uncertain. Margaret took the stage before anyone could commit to another joke. She didn't do a preamble. She never does. Good evening. Before we open the pledge drive, I want to recognize an internal appointment the corporation approved last week, as of this morning. Harvard's youngest tenured professor in government joins the faculty roster. Ethan, if you join me. The lights shifted. The screen behind her lit up with the Littauer course banner and my full title in Garamond. Professor Ethan Caldwell. Tenured. Government Department. Appointed to the Caldwell family endowed chair. The room didn't cheer right away. It took a second for the synapses to fire. Then the polite, stunned applause rolled in from the deans and the development staff who already knew. Vanessa's glass hit the edge of the podium table and chipped. Troy stepped into my peripheral, voice low, smiling for the cameras. Kill this. Now, I have the separation draft in my briefcase. You pull Margaret off stage. We say it was a clerical mix-up, and Ness lets you keep the visiting lecture line on your CV. Don't, I said, still looking at the screen. You don't get how fast I can freeze your access in this city. Then you should have read the audit authorization I filed this morning. I said, turning just enough of the mic pack on my lapel to catch it. I didn't keep the main PA, just the floor monitors, but the reporter's recorder was already running. Page 12 of your gift agreement. Troy, conflict of interest filing with the state AG hits their inbox Monday at 8. You freeze me. Your firm's 501c. 3. Routing get a subpoena before lunch. He stepped back like I'd breathed on him. Vanessa grabbed my sleeve. Hard. Ethan. Off stage. Now. I peeled her fingers off, one by one, careful not to make a scene of the physical contact. The reporter was definitely recording video now. You mocked a man who hadn't failed you. Ness, I said, keeping my voice level so the whole half-circle of Boston owe money could hear it clearly. You just failed to wait 30 seconds for the email. The ballroom noise collapsed into that specific Boston silence, the kind where nobody wants to be the first to clap and nobody wants to be caught laughing at the wrong person. Margaret wrapped her remarks exactly on time. Professor Caldwell will be teaching his first lecture Monday morning. Press office has a syllabus. I walked off the riser. Someone from the alumni board tried to hand me a drink. I passed. Out in the hallway by the elevators. Vanessa finally dropped the performance. You did that on purpose, she said, voice shaking. Not from sadness, from losing the script. I didn't do anything. You introduced me as a failure to a reporter 10 minutes ago. I was protecting your dignity. By inventing a failure I didn't have? She raked a hand through her hair, glancing over her shoulder to make sure Troy wasn't close enough to eavesdrop. Fine, fine, so you're tenured. Great, we use it. Tomorrow I tell Lauren it was an inside joke. Troy walks back to donor language, and we spin the gala as a surprise announcement. We're fine. We're not fine. Don't be a child. You think tenure means you don't need me? You don't have a single photo of yourself at that podium. That doesn't make you look like a moody adjunct. I make you legible to these people. I pull my phone out and open the university housing portal, turning the screen toward her. I signed the separation housing waiver this afternoon. University council copied your father's office and Troy's GC. Her face drained. You filed for separation? Just a residence decoupling. Gives me faculty housing in Quincy. Keeps you on the Beacon Hill deed until we settle. Exactly like the prenup says. I'm not trying to take your money. Vanessa, I'm trying to stop hearing my name in your jokes. If you walk out of this hotel, she said, Troy will have the Globe piece rewritten by midnight. They'll say you force a title, that you use in side connections, that you're unstable. Let them. I said, Monday morning I'm teaching Litar 4 to 200 kids who already downloaded the reading. The louder your people lie, the better my enrollment looks. She reached for me again, softer this time. Ethan, please, don't leave me in there alone. I looked past her, back at the ballroom doors where Troy was already working a reporter, trying to sell a correction that wouldn't stick. You weren't alone. I said, you were with a version of me you invented. Go enjoy him. The elevator dinged. I got on. She didn't follow. Text from Lila at 11:42 p.m. Twitter is doing its thing. Someone filmed the podium exchange. It's already on the Crimson tip. Also, registrar just bumped 2,290 to webcast only. You broke the fire marshal limit. Me. Tell him to unlock the overflow room. Lila, you want me to send a statement to the Globe? Meh. No. Let Monday do the talking. I shut the phone off before Vanessa could text from club Wi-Fi, which she did anyway. 7 messages in a row ending with, Vanessa, my dad wants to talk. This is bigger than you now. I didn't answer. For the first time in 2 years. The silence in my inbox felt better than the noise in the house. She came back to the townhouse at 6 a.m. Makeup still patchy from a gala. Carrying a manila folder Troy had prepped in the hotel bar. Dad's awake, she said, kicking off her heels by the stairs instead of lining them up. He wants this signed before 9. If you take the foundation fellowship quietly and let me tell the Globe you misread the tenure timeline, he'll keep the seed fund open at $50K. I was at the kitchen island, zipping my bag over a stack of course readers. I told you yesterday, no foundation fellowship. She slapped the folder onto the readers. Stop performing. Ethan, you think tenure means you don't need leverage? Troy ran a conflict check. Your appointment skips 2 ranks. If I tell Margaret you pressure me to lie about the donor clause, you won't. I said, try me. I slid the separation papers across the marble. My signature was already on page 7, exactly where hers needed to go. No addendums, no trust grabs, no Pierce Foundation line item, equitable split. I said, house stays in both names until June. Then it's yours if you buy me out at the appraisal we agreed to in 21. I'm not touching your dad's distributions. I'm not taking spousal. And I'm not fighting the prenup. She stared at the paper like it was written in a language she hadn't bothered to learn. You're walking away from the house? I have faculty housing in Quincy starting Wednesday. Quincy, she repeated, tasting the humiliation. You're moving to a university box while I'm standing here offering you a career. You're not offering me a career. Vanessa, you're offering me a costume. She sat down hard on the stool, the fight dropping out of her all at once. That was new. Usually she needs an audience to surrender. Ethan, she said, voice smaller. Please. Last night was, okay, it was humiliating, but I didn't know. Nobody tells me anything. You don't tell me anything. I thought you were drowning. I was covering for you. You were punching down, Because it made Greg and Troy laugh. Because you never defended yourself. She snapped, then caught herself, softened again. If you just told me you were getting the chair, you would have negotiated it. I said, standing up. That's all you know how to do. She reached for my hand. I didn't pull away fast, but I didn't hold it either. Sign the separation. I said, or don't. Either way, I'm teaching in 3 hours. She didn't sign. She just watched me pick up the readers and walk out the door with my duffel. Lidor was already a mess by the time I hit the lobby. Security had to turn away a WBUR producer trying to pass for a grad student. Lila was waiting by the podium outside room 4, holding a clipboard like a Bernard. Overflow is full, she said. Margaret sent a note. Senate Rules Committee just emailed her. They want you in D.C. Thursday. Thursday? Apparently tenure makes you bipartisan suddenly. I nodded, set my bag on the lectern, and checked the clock. 2 minutes to. Through the glass doors at the back of the tiered seating, I saw Vanessa. She'd come. Of course she had. She was in a trench coat, no badge, arguing quietly with a campus cop who clearly wasn't impressed. Troy was 10 feet behind her, hovering near the press rope like he still owned the shot. Lila stepped into the aisle. Want me to have them SC'd? Leave them. I said, let them hear the syllabus. I tapped the mic once. The room settled faster than I expected. Good morning. I said, if you're here for the Crimson, sit down and take the reading anyway. It's on Canvas. If you're here for the TikTok, we're not doing a QA about my personal life. A few laughs. Nervous. Smart ones. I didn't open the textbook. I opened the Massachusetts pocket code I brought in instead. Week 1 is usually market failures. We're doing something adjacent. Page 42 of the State Common Law Digest, detrimental reliance. The idea that if you change your behavior based on someone's promise, and they know you're relying on it, they owe you more than a retraction. I looked up, right at the glass. Vanessa was perfectly still. Today we talk about asymmetric information. I said, voice steady, not in markets, in the rooms you sleep in. If the people around you profit from your smallest stumble, they're not your partners. They're short sellers. And the only way to close that position is to stop giving them your price action. Someone in the front row raised a hand, one of the poli-sci seniors. Professor Caldwell. Does that apply to institutional donors too? Especially institutional donors. I said, ask Donovan Pierce. The room laughed for real this time. Not the club kind, the relieved kind. I closed the digest and set it aside. Here's how the semester works. You read. You show up. You argue better than I do. Or you fail. No nepotism exceptions. No foundation fellowships. No one gets to buy your grade. And no one gets to mock your process while you're still becoming the thing they'll never understand. I clicked to the slide. Week 1 reading. Boston Municipal Bond Disclosures, annotated. Madison, Federalist 10. And a reminder, tenure protects a question, not the ego. Class started properly after that. Cold call on a first year who nailed the Madison citation. Another on a reporter in the back who sheepishly admitted she was from the Globe. I took her question about the donor audit, answered it in 3 sentences of statutory plain English, and moved on when the bell chimed. I didn't linger. Lila met me at the side exit with a small white box of roses, no card, just a slit in the wrapping where someone had taped a Harvard stationery slip. Margaret again? I asked. Actually, anonymous. Campus mail dropped it 5 minutes ago. I didn't open the card. I handed the box to Lila, put them in the grad lounge. Out on the quad lawn, Vanessa was waiting by the bike rack. Troy was gone. She'd taken the trench off and folded it over her arm. The security guard had finally let her step outside, but not inside. You didn't have to do that, she said. Do what? Make it about me without saying my name. I didn't make it about you. I said, I made it about information asymmetry. You just happened to be the example. She tried to smile. The old one. The Chatham in the Rain one. You're still keeping the house open until June? Read the papers. Ness. She nodded. looking past me at the building where 200 people had just clapped for a man she introduced as a punchline 3 nights ago. "I'll sign," she said quietly. "Mail it to University Council. Saves us a room." I turned toward the T-stop. She didn't call after me this time. Margaret was waiting in the corridor behind the lecture hall, leather folio under her arm. "Senate hearing is Thursday," she said. 8 a.m. Judiciary Subcommittee. They want the youngest tenured professor Harvard's had in 40 years to testify on municipal transparency. I shrugged the bag higher on my shoulder. "I'll clear the reading list with Lila." She handed me the folio. Inside was a formal D.C. briefing packet and, clipped to the front, a handwritten note in Margaret's angular script. "Next time, tell your wife sooner. It's cheaper than a gala." I folded the note into the syllabus, pushed through the double doors, and walked straight into the cold without checking if anyone was filming. The rain had stopped. For the first time since I quit McKinsey, I didn't care who noticed.